Those kids ever trust him again? Probably not. Never. Never will they trust him again. Do they have to love him? No. Do they have to respect him? No. Do they have to honor him? Yes. To some level. To some level. As tough and as difficult as that might be. And I'm going to make this argument as well, that, and this is part of the Torah, is that it asks us to do things when we don't feel like doing them. Yep. It asks us to move beyond our feelings and our emotions, to say, do the right thing just because it's the right thing. And that's a tough assignment in many instances. Yes?
I'm wondering if maybe that is part of the healing process too. If you have to provide, because you have to always deal with it. You can't like put it under the surface, because, you know. And I know I've heard before people who've had that happen, and it's a really hard thing for them to trust God because of what their parents did. But I mean, again, if you have to provide for them, you're constantly having to deal with whatever that situation was.
Right.
And maybe that's God's way of saying, okay, since you have to deal with it, I can heal you for this.
I think so. I think there's a part of that there, absolutely. Part of that there. All right, we'll move on. Go with me to I want to go to verse 9. It says this, when you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not wholly reap the corners of your field, nor shall you gather the gleanings of your harvest. And you shall not glean your vineyard, nor shall you gather every grape of your vineyard. You shall leave them for the poor and the stranger. I am the Lord your God. I write this. Leviticus 19, 9 and 10 deals with the commands to farmers within the land and their responsibility to those who have little or no food. For other texts dealing with the commands related to farmers, you can see Exodus 23:11, Leviticus 23, 22, Deuteronomy 24. First, the farmer is not to reap to the corners of the field, but the exact amount to be left ungleaned is not specified. Second, the produce that has fallen prior to the gleaning or that occurs during gleaning is to be left untouched. How interesting that the Torah provides a means by which those who have no regular source of food can provide for themselves if they are willing to get into the fields and work. While many people today do not do agricultural farming, I believe that we can practice the principle of leaving the corners by helping feed the poor and using our resources to help those in need. So we can take a little portion of what we make and use that to leave the corners. Okay? And that's kind of what the homeless breakfast in a sense is about, is that, you know what, we can leave the corners. We can leave a little bit left over in our fields to help those who don't have anything. And rather than, and the Torah says this, it's interesting, it never judges the poor. It never tries to say, well, you know,
you're reaping what you sow.
Yeah. It never tries to put them down and say, you know, here's the rationale for why they are. I'll deal with them. You keep an open hand and an open heart to help them. I'll deal with them. Yeah.
You notice it doesn't say how much of a corner.
Yeah.
I think that is up to you and how much you love your neighbor.
Yeah. It is. He's right. He's absolutely right. Here's what's interesting. So the Mishnah puts a minimum on it. They say, okay, you have to leave 1/60th of your field of the corner.
Yeah, but that's rabbinical.
That's rabbinical, yeah. I'm just saying they gave a minimum. And then what's interesting is, later on they went on to say, use this phrase, which is used in Paul, and they said, against such we have no Torah. In other words, we're not going to regulate it. You need to regulate your own heart on what you leave as the corner. And Paul later on uses that phrase, against such there is no Torah. In other words, there are things that the Torah leaves unspecified because it wants you to deal with it. It doesn't want somebody else to tell you what that percentage is. It wants you to deal with it. And you figure out what the corner is. Where that corner is, how big it is. But something has to go to them. In what you make, something should go to those in need who don't have, for whatever reason. And the reason isn't important as it comes to your giving it. Because ultimately, everything we have comes from Him anyway. And the land belongs to Him. And the ability to produce on the land belongs to Him. The rain comes from Him. The sun comes from Him. All that comes from Him. So you can give a little bit back.
The fact that combination
vast
works.
majority. Say again?
The fact that combination of sunlight and rain and all that other stuff even works on our behalf, just by
Exactly.
him. It's amazing in itself anyway.
Absolutely. All right. Verse 14.
Or not.
Skipping down, he says this: "You shall not cheat your neighbor nor rob him. The wages of him who is hired shall not remain with you all night in the morning." Skip down to verse 14. "You shall not curse the deaf, nor put a stumbling block before the blind, but fear your God. I am the Lord." Bless you, sweetie. All right. So I write this. In Leviticus 19:14, we are commanded to resist using the physical handicap of another to our advantage. To use the handicap of another is an attempt to demean or abuse that is both cruel and violates basic human decency. This verse goes on to say that we must fear God, which is the text way of saying that while the blind may not see and the deaf may not hear, our God is watching and listening. As a society, we have the Torah responsibility to make sure that the way is easier for those who have disabilities or handicaps, rather than using these persons because they are vulnerable due to physical limitations. In other words, you can't use a person's physical limitations against them. And you must make a way for them to have access to everything that everybody else does. What year, does anybody remember, it took us to this, I forget the year, to come up with the ADA, the American Disabilities Act? 60,
Probably, that sounds right, yeah.
That was,
73?
First Bush.
Yeah, 73?
No,
Well, it started in
90s.
90?
public law.
Late 80s.
Yeah. To where you know, if you have a double, a multi-level, you have to have an elevator. If you have, you have to have handicap parking. These are Torah principles being put into action to say it took us to regulate it. The Torah would have, if we'd listened to the Torah, we'd have known, hey, look, you have to have double doors so people in a wheelchair can get through. These kind of things. And if you were in a wheelchair, you would want those niceties as well, access. So it took us a while to put into law what should have, in a sense, been
Common
already
sense.
moving and already common sense would have said, these things need to happen already. Any comments or questions on that, or anybody want to make a comment? Or yes,
People overlook the handicap a lot. I deal with American Disabilities Act stuff as an inspector all the time, on sidewalks especially, and it's easy for the guys that are doing these building plans and all this stuff, because they're healthy and don't have those disabilities, they don't foresee any problems or issues until you're out there on the job and you see people using the facilities out there and you're like, wow,
all right.
there's more to it.
Absolutely. Here's a simple one. When you build a curb, you have to build it flat down so that when you come to that curb, you can get back, you can get on it first, and then continue on the sidewalk. Don't build a curb where it's this high. You can't get anything. You can't get a wheelchair over this. So just that kind of a thinking. And he's right. We don't think about those who have handicaps and needs. So it's Torah is asking us to think in terms of that. All right, let's skip down to verse 17 and 18. He says this: "You shall not hate your brother in your heart." Now there it is. I've had people say to me in the past, the Torah does not deal with internal issues. It only deals with externals. It's only concerned with externals. Well, hold on here. He says, "You shall not hate your brother in your heart." Here's what's interesting. If you read the Qumran material, the Dead Sea Scrolls was just there. You have the sons of light and the sons of darkness. And in their literature, it says, "You shall love the sons of light, and you shall hate the sons of darkness." It actually says that in their literature. It never says in the Torah that we're to hate. In fact, he says, "You shall not hate your brother in your heart." It's internal. He goes on to say, "You shall surely rebuke your neighbor and not bear sin because of him. You shall not take vengeance nor bear any grudge against the children of your people, but you shall love your neighbor as yourself. I am the Lord your God." Now, I gave you the paper, this paper right here, "Love your neighbor as yourself." Here's the cut to the chase basic idea, and that is this: that to love your neighbor is not to feel something for them or to have some emotive issue with them. It is to serve them. Serve your neighbor as you serve yourself. Okay? So, you can read the article later on, but the idea is that you serve, you work for, to help. And then the question became, you know, you had a Jewish lawyer who comes to Yeshua and says, okay, that's all great, but I got a question. Who's my neighbor? Who is my neighbor? I'm going to stop here just a second. Heavenly Father, we ask that you would just be with those emergency personnel that are going to do their work. We just ask that you would be with them, that you would watch over them. Lord, I just pray that you will allow them to accomplish the purpose for which you sent them. For it's in your name we pray. Amen. So, you know, it's one of those things that, by the way, Lord be with Earl, and Lord be with, what's your son's name? Aaron. Thank you. Two firemen. Appreciate emergency personnel, even on Shabbat. Especially on Shabbat. So where was I at?
Doing good to help your neighbor.
Yes, doing good to help your neighbor. Thank you.
No, the teacher of the law. Who is my neighbor?
Yeah, who is my neighbor? Yeah, he's asking who's his neighbor. So he tells him the story of the Good Samaritan. Tells him the parable of the Good Samaritan. It says, look, any person who has a need, and you can meet that need, that's your neighbor. It's not about parsing who is my neighbor. If I see the need and I can meet the need, then be a neighbor. Who is a neighbor to that person? The guy who picks him up, puts him on his donkey, takes him to an inn, takes him to a place where he can receive medical help. We have a basic responsibility to humanity. This goes back to the issue of respect. Yeah.
And in context, the next step further, he says, regard others greater than yourself.
Yes. Consider others greater than yourself. If you consider others greater than yourself, then you have to help them. Remember what we've said in the past. Here's world history. Here's world history in a nutshell. This comes from David Brock. As soon as I, people representing people group, think that I'm here and they're here, we will have to enslave them or genocide them. If I think that we're here, we can live peaceably and coexist. The moment I think that they're here and I'm here, I've got to do one or two things to them. This is world history in a nutshell. This is why we have wars. Because we start thinking that we're better than. So Paul says, hey, look, actually consider others better than yourself. Consider yourself here and them here. Then you'll have no problem serving them. Yes?
Isaiah says that we're to share our bread with the poor, not just our neighbor.
Absolutely. Yeah, both neighbor and poor. And the text is saying it as much. So anyway, I gave you this to look at that. But look at what he says here. So by the way, this is why these two texts are read together. Deuteronomy 6:5. So you have the Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Hear, O Israel, and then it's V'ahavta, and you shall love the Lord your God, is paired with it. So the greatest commandments, plural, are, and you shall love V'ahavta, and you shall love the Lord your God, or you shall serve the Lord your God, and you shall serve your neighbor as you serve yourself. All right. Here's an interesting one. Verse 19. It says this, you shall keep my statutes, you shall not let your livestock breed another kind, you shall not sow your field with mixed seed. Now here's the interesting one. Nor shall you a garment of mixed linen and wool come upon you. This is called sha'atnez. Okay, you can't mix wool and linen. Okay? So here's what's interesting. You know, why can't you mix wool and linen? Okay. Anybody want to offer an idea? Yeah.
I've heard conversations that it has something to do with the priestly garments.
Yes,
about
absolutely.
us being set apart from that.
You're right. Yeah, the priestly garments are made of linen and wool, and so to keep anybody from impersonating a priest, I think that's part of the reason is that nobody else can mix these two. The priests are allowed to do so in Leviticus. Yes.
Just a modern day thought on this is that, so linen, plant,
Yes.
wool, animal.
Correct.
So it's interesting to me to see what like supply where they're splicing like mouse ear genetics into corn and stuff like that. They're splicing animal into vegetable. And it just makes me wonder what is the Lord thinking, you know, when he looks down going, hey, Leviticus 19:19, hello?
Right.